Welcome to R.E.A.L's Real podcast. Real conversations, real people, real life. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your man R.E.A.L here today, and I'm back with another episode of R.E.L's Real podcast. Today, my guest is my beautiful wife,
Queen R.E.A.L.
And today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic. For those of you who don't know, we've been married for 4 years now. She's a little upset with me because of what we're going to be talking about today, actually, is the challenges of foster parenting.
So, interesting. I didn't know what the subject was going to be. I'm like, wait, you about to put our business out there? Okay.
And so her and I decided that we wanted to do foster parenting in September of 2020. Well, we had talked about it for a while beforehand.
Yeah, a few years beforehand.
But it didn't seem like a plausible thing. You know, it didn't seem like it would be.
It did, but it didn't seem like it would happen so soon. Right.
Because we had talked about it before, but we started talking about it seriously in September when your family came out here to visit.
Yeah.
We recently moved. Okay, so quick backstory. We moved to Mississippi in 2020 after my mom passed away, and she left us a house, so it was like we have
a lot of space,
hella space. So it was just like for the first 9 months of being out here, it was just us in a 4-bedroom house, and we literally lived on one side of the house.
Literally just one side, our bedroom and the den. That's it.
We only went to the kitchen. It was so bad that we had creatures living on the other side of the house that we did not know.
Rats, to be exact.
And so my mother-in-law, your mom, brought it up that we should probably try to pursue it. And she had a conversation with someone at a gas station, I believe it was. Yeah. And they were like, you can make a little bit of money doing that. And I was just like,
in it for the money. Like, that never even crossed our mind to like, So
I was upset by the fact that somebody would even say that. So I'm just like, so people are actually doing this for money.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, it must be really easy to get in to do this. So we started the process literally that day.
And the strange thing is we filled out the applications. And we got an email, the next day or a few hours later, and they denied us. They said no, like our application was denied. So we're like, okay, I guess it ain't for us. We'll try again at another time in our life. So we just kind of like forgot about it.
Right.
And then a month later?
Probably a couple weeks after the family had left, after our birthdays. Our birthdays are both in September. So
it was like a month later, if that, a month, 3 weeks, if that. Yeah. We had got a call, and the lady's like, oh, well, did you still want to be foster parents? You have to fill out your application. We like, I thought we was denied. She's like, oh, no, like you forgot to fill out a certain part, or
literally
he forgot to sign something.
It was something small.
Yeah. So we had to go back in and do a DocuSign where we just have to sign our signature, his signature, and then after that we were like, okay. She's like, oh, she's gonna give us a call back. She didn't call us back until 2 months later.
Well, we got a call back in November, but it was like
2 months later.
Yeah.
2 months later
to start the process,
the classes.
And then it was small things, and then when December hit, she put her foot on the gas and
she was like, oh, you guys need to do this, you got to come down to the office, you got to sign papers, you need to finish your classes. And we're like, well, we thought we had more time. Like, this all happened within a 4-month span, like from our birthdays to December. Like, everything just went boom, 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 boom. We did our classes online, like it was like virtual. And it was like, even when we were doing our classes, she forgot to give us a packet. So we were like in our class, not even knowing following what everybody else was following. Like, we were just going along with it. And it was a good class.
It was a good class. They asked people a lot of questions. And one of the questions was, if you see these bad behaviors, what would you do? Would you let the kid go? And her and I are both on the same page. We don't believe in kicking kids out.
Right, but it was weird. Like a lot of parents would be like, "Oh, well, they couldn't take it," or they would call, the worker and stuff like that. But we were instantly like, "No, we would never do that," only because of our own personal upbringings and certain experiences that we had. We knew that was not a decision that we would make, as far as if a kid is acting crazy, to kick them out, or acting bad, or disrespectful stuff. We wouldn't. Our first choice would not be, "Oh, y'all got to go."
Right.
Like that.
I don't think that's an option at all.
Yeah, that was like out of the window for us. So we answered it, and they was just like, "Oh, well, okay."
So the class was finished, and then we did all of our paperwork.
How long was the class? What, like 3 days?
Yeah, we had 3 classes. It was 3 classes.
3
days.
About
3 different people, and one of them, actually, the lady had the PowerPoint didn't even work, so we were pretty much there talking for like 10 minutes, and then she was like, "Well, that's it."
And it's like, what kind of class is this? But crazy thing is, we felt like the teachers needed training,
right,
in the class. Like, it didn't feel like they were up to par or even professional enough to be training people that didn't know nothing about it.
And this is supposed to be getting people ready to be foster
Like,
parents.
it's like they were learning as they were going through the packets, and if a packet didn't work or a slide didn't go through, they skipped over it. So it's like we're supposed to be intaking all of this knowledge and stuff, but it's like they didn't even have the knowledge to really give us to properly intake.
Not at all.
I don't think we didn't properly learn a lot of the rules and stuff the way we should have.
No.
We kind of just had to wing it and learn as we went. And because we didn't learn all the rules along our journey, we did get into some little issues in the future.
But we'll get to that. So let's go to the part of the process where in December we had finished everything, but we weren't sure if everything went through, because I went through some things that I'll share later on. But when in my younger days, where I had to justify because I went to jail when I was younger, in order to be foster parents. So I wrote the letter, and everything came back good. But we didn't know for sure until literally
they called it and said, "Oh, we're gonna be bringing you a child."
No. Remember, it was the day of Mr. Price, your godfather's funeral.
Oh, okay. So yeah, my godfather had passed away, and I called my godmother and asked if we can attend the funeral. We ended up attending the funeral. While we were at the repast of the funeral, we got a call. And it was a bittersweet moment because, we're celebrating my godfather's great man who just passed away, and we're mourning the loss of him, So it was sad, but then we got the call, and it made it more of a like bittersweet moment, if we can say that.
Like I said, everything went through. Like,
background checks, everything was.
You guys are licensed, and you should be expecting a call any day now.
Yeah.
And then so New Year's, like that was towards right before Christmas actually. So we were out there. Then we had our anniversary. We celebrated our anniversary. We had Christmas, New Year's. No calls yet. So I'm thinking, okay,
we're just wait. It's gonna take a little longer.
Nothing's gonna happen. And literally, the January 10th, we got the call.
Yeah. We got the call.
And we said, well, we have a child for you. Would you be willing to take them? Really, January 10th was 2 days before the anniversary of my mom's passing. So, it's meant to be. They said, so the child will come tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And they called us with the same day about the second child.
Yeah, but it was kind of like, not to bash the system, but the way that they describe the children that you're supposed to be taking in your home, it's wrong. I'm just going to put it out there. They pretty much bashed them. And if you're not the type of people that we were, I'm pretty sure someone else would have said no.
Because they told us about the first girl that came and said, "Oh, well, she stole her old foster parents' car.
She has behavior issues." Like, they said a lot of horrible stuff. And then The second girl, and we both consider them both our daughters now.
Right.
But at the time, they were just strangers as kids. But the second girl, they was like, oh, they're in cahoots together. They can't be trusted. They're both disrespectful, conniving, like so many bad things.
Right.
And
give
we
us
were
the
like,
rundown, and then they even asked us, "Are you sure that you want to take both of them?"
we said yes.
Yes, no problem.
They're teenagers. If they do have each other back, at least they'll feel comfortable with being with each other because they're coming into a strange home. They don't know us, but if they know each other, then that'll be great. You know, we don't have a problem with that. But going back into the mind state of if we weren't the type of people that we were.
Right.
With the social worker calling us saying, hey, would you like to take these children? And then telling us, quote unquote, about them or the type of children that they were.
Right.
They would have said, gotta know, which is wrong. Right. Which is
basically,
wrong.
Basically, they called us and said, would you like to take this bad child?
Yeah. Pretty much. We said yes.
So we slept on it. We said yes immediately. And then, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what, for me, I had a dream of a white kid actually, and I didn't know what to expect. I was nervous. We did everything. We prepared the room. We were just like, okay, what do we do? And
mind you, we don't have no problem with white kids. It's just the name that they gave us because they didn't really tell us the race of one of the children at the time. They didn't tell us what race they were. So his dream was, okay, maybe they're white. But I was like, but we didn't care. But
So when she got here, I actually wasn't here. I was getting the last little things that she might have needed. I was here. And so I came home, and it was just like, oh, my goodness.
But before you tell your part, because I was here.
Oh, yeah,
okay, so the child arrived, and her social worker brought her in, and I was like, hi, introduced myself or whatever. She was bringing all her stuff in. I was so nervous, like stomach was turning. Now, I don't get nervous, but I was nervous for this moment. I thought it was going to be awkward or weird. Like, maybe she's not going to like me. Maybe she's not going to want to talk about what occurred or what have you. Her social worker told me a little bit more about her. And it was like, if you need anything, call me. So once her social worker left, I came into the room, introduced myself, said what I would prefer to be called, asked what she would prefer to be called. Just got to know a little bit of, like, a tiny bit of background. And I let her know that he was not here, but he would be on his way home. He was at the store. And then he came back.
And when I came, I was just like, oh, my goodness, she's here. And it's part of this story. I hope to have her on to talk about it. So I'll talk about that part of it with her. But
yeah,
it was like, oh, my goodness, is a child here? Okay, what do we do? But okay, I was like happy and joyous at the same time. I was a little nervous, like, okay,
know what to expect.
What's the vibe gonna be, And so we had a tradition already between each other then, which is probably we need to get back to, is having dinner together every night
as a family. Yeah.
And so what we did is try to make her feel included in the conversation.
So we had dinner that first night. I cooked, and she wasn't really eating. And we were like, why are you eating? Why are you not eating? She said her stomach was shy. Fast forward now, the stomach ain't shy.
We told her, you better eat. And I think we told her the rules probably like right before the dinner.
Rules and stuff like that.
But we didn't have many rules at that point. So it was basically just respect the house, respect yourself, clean up after yourself.
Clean up after yourself, keep your room clean, stuff like that. But it was good. It was like kind of like we just like connected. Like it wasn't weird or awkward or like.
While I said grace, we held hands, and I noticed something from her. She said she can pick up on things, and she said, "I can tell that you're grieving."
Yeah, he had just lost his mom like the year before, and this was the anniversary of her passing. Yeah. So well, when she got here,
she got here on January 11th, and Kayla got here on January 12th.
Say their name, but yes. And then, and then, literally the next day, they brought the second child, and we opened the door, and they did the most beautifulest embrace ever. They hugged each other. They fell on the floor. We started laughing like, whoa. And then that same thing occurred. We told the other girl, the second girl, the rules. Let her bring all her stuff in, let her know that this was her room. They had separate rooms. And then we ate dinner that night, and it was kind of like we just like had a great dinner. We got to open up, got to talk, got to get to know them. And it was like, had we listened to these social workers, we would have never got to know them in this way, because they were nothing like the social workers stated that they were. They were actually really good kids, like really, really good kids, smart, outgoing, funny, goofy. They were really good kids.
The past experiences that they had at other foster homes, and it was just, I was flabbergasted that they had these terrible experiences at other places, including, being kicked out like that, or not being able to feel safe or comfortable in their own space, Yeah. And so, that's why they ended up getting into the situation they were in, is because
a situation happened. But we're not going to go too much into detail in certain situations because it's not our stories to tell. But incidents occurred in other homes that they were in and with other people that made them feel per se uncomfortable, or made them feel like they couldn't be, themselves, or feel comfortable in their own skin. So when they got here, we let them know, you can be who you are. We're not going to judge you of anything, because at one point we were teenagers.
Right.
At one point we were in situations that made us feel a certain way, and we understand. So it was cool. We had a lot of fun.
The adjustment period was so quick. I mean, after the first dinner together, it was like
we was a family.
They're part of the family, and we look forward to our dinners every night. And from all of January and all of February, it was
cool.
Oh my goodness, this is a family. I looked forward to waking up to seeing them.
Yeah, me too.
We're going to wake up. What are they going to do today? What are we going to do as a family today? We're going to play cards. We're going to
listen to music, have a little dance down, play some games.
More watching them dance because I can't dance.
It was fun.
Listening to them be themselves. And then
just more so watching the characteristics of who they were as individuals and how they blended together. It was cool.
Feeling comfortable to be themselves and talk candidly with us,
about anything.
And when we say anything, we mean anything. Because, look, we were kids at one point, and especially for me, I felt like I couldn't talk to my parents about anything, especially personal things, sex or anything like that. So we have an open door policy. Talk to us. Tell us how you're feeling. Are you doing this? We'll ask them questions all the time.
Probably a little bit overbearing, but they understand that we mean well.
Right. We're realistic. You're gonna do it, but
please protect yourself.
Protect yourself.
Yeah.
You want to go to the store? I will buy you condoms.
Yeah. They ain't like that, but it's a part of safety. We understand that they're at the age to where, 16, 17, they're at that age to where, of course, they're going to be exploring their bodies and other people's bodies.
Right.
If they hadn't already, we at least wanted to make sure that they were prepared.
These girls that we had are 16 years old when they got here, so they had a life before they came here. So for us to turn a blind eye and say we didn't know, what something had to have happened before you came here.
Yeah.
So we let them tell their stories to us, and they were open, surprisingly, very much so. Wasn't no secrets held back.
Well, probably was stuff between them that they kept, but
right.
But for the most part, we got to know their stories, which was great.
And as for me, her and I built two different bonds with them as far as relationships go, because when we first came, I was in the process of getting a new job, so I had time off, and she was working from home, and so I spent more time with them. So
he'll tell me oh, did they tell you this? I'm like, no, we done had that conversation. I'm missing out. I'll be low key jealous a little bit, what?
They would tell me everything, and like, well, I wasn't afraid to ask either. And plus, I would tell them about me. So I would tell them the struggles I had at their age, and like a lot of times their eyes would light up and be like, "You went through."
He was able to relate more to their situations than I was. I'll put it like that, because I went through certain things as a adolescent and teenager, but it wasn't the same struggle, if that makes sense.
Right.
So he was able to relate to them more, so they opened up to him more with more personal details into their life. I was kind of the person that was just like working and like, oh, she's cool, but
they had the more of the female bond, you know, because when it came to
I was more of the girly person, like makeup and stuff like that. He didn't know there was an incident where he took them to the store to get some braided hair and told them to get what they want, and they spent over $60 or $70.
No, they spent over $100.
Oh, well, over $100. I'm like, what did y'all get? Well, they said they needed this. I'm just like, oh, they didn't got over on you, sir.
They didn't
got over on you.
They said they needed hair, and I was just like, well, my babies need hair, so they're gonna get some hair.
Too much hair. They didn't even use all the hair, but that's, going to another subject. Back on topic.
So we had them for
two of the girls
for until March. So March hit, and
was it after Kayla's birthday? After the second girl's birthday?
No.
Okay.
We had got them. I went to go see my dad in Virginia because he was having a surgery. And I wanted to take them with us, and then that's when we ran into our first issue, was taking them out of state, which was, because they were foster children and they're still wards of the state. I couldn't just take them with me to go meet my dad when I wanted to, even though they were both hyped to go. But we realized at that point that what if something happens and they don't know,
right? So we could get in trouble. But the crazy thing is, we didn't know if we can take them with us, and we didn't. But one of the girls, the second girl, social worker, when he got back, we told her about the situation, and she was like, "Oh, they could have went. You could have just taken them. It would have been no problem."
Right.
But come to find out, she quit, and that was false. She gave us false information.
Right. But we didn't find that out until later.
An incident that occurred.
Right. So we're thinking like, okay, this is in our minds. Like, dang, I could have took them to meet my dad, and that would have been great. So I get back, and then a couple of days later, we got the call about having a third child. And so since we had built that bond with these two girls already, so we were like, how do we talk to them about bringing a third child in? So we had our dinner.
And we talked about it. And the first child that we got, she was okay with it. She was like, yeah, I'm cool with it. But the second one.
But mind you, the situation was the first girl we got, this was her room. This is what was her room now.
Yeah, we're currently in her old bedroom. Her old room.
This is my office now. And so she had her own bedroom. Kayla would have had to share a bedroom.
Yeah.
And so it was different because it was easier for our first daughter to say, oh, yeah, that's fine.
I'll say this in our defense as the parents, the second bedroom is like 2.5 bedrooms in one.
It's bigger than our bedroom. It's the biggest bedroom in the house.
It's 2.5 bedrooms in one, and she did not want to share the space. So she was like, oh, I got a share room. I don't want to share room. And she bet not come in here acting like y'all her parents. She bet not call y'all mom and dad. Like, she was not having it.
Finally broke the next day. I guess y'all could let her come in. I guess. So
she came, and I think I was at work when she got here. Or was I?
Yeah, you were at work when she came. So I was the one to greet her
this time.
Yeah, and they did the same thing they did with the other two, and described all kind of behavioral issues and things that honestly, to me, the only thing I need to know about this child is, do they have a medical restriction that I need to know about, that we need to know about beforehand so we can act accordingly? Because do you have diabetes? Do we need to give them medicine at this time or whatever? Other than that, let us figure out who they are.
Yeah.
So they told us that, and she was the next girl was
She
shy.
was younger. She was a lot younger, 2 years younger to be exact than the other two. The other two were the same age. They were 16 and 17, and then both 17. But she was 15 when she first came into our home.
In March.
She was like really quiet. She wasn't as open. She wasn't as comfortable.
Not at all.
With the other two girls are with us in the beginning. But it played a lot due to what happened before she came into our custody.
Right.
She wasn't coming from someone else's home. She was actually coming from a facility, with a group of different kids and different personalities, and there were no parents. There were what do you call it? Guards and staff members that took care of these group of children. So it was different. She wasn't coming in like the other two where they were familiar with each other, so they had some type of balance to kind of ping off of.
Right.
She was the new person.
Right. And it was obvious to her that the other two kids had a bond already, and then they had a bond with us.
Yeah.
And then so her to come in, we tried our best to make her feel comfortable, so we included her in the first on our first dinner, of course. Mm-hmm. And she was quiet that first dinner.
Very
and
quiet.
She was just kind of looked like she was peeping the scenery.
Yeah, she was more observing because she didn't know what was going on. Like, we was laughing, having a good time, and she was just kind of more observant.
But I think she noticed that how candidly that they talked with us, because we had a conversation about
openness,
sex that night. Like, it just came up during the conversation, so it wasn't like, I think her eyes kind of widened, but she felt like she couldn't jump in. So
yeah,
it took her, the second day it was a little bit easier, but
our dog is in the room with us, and I think he's snoring. So if y'all hear something in the background, it is our dog Simba.
So it took a little bit for us for her to get comfortable with it.
Yeah, it took more for us to make her open enough to tell her story, tell her experience, like who she was as a person.
And then her and I found a bond between each other, which was we had both lost a parent.
Yeah.
And so then I started having a conversation with her about, you can talk to me anytime because I understand, because I've been through that.
Right.
And I'm still struggling with it. And
he connected a lot more with her on that stance than I could ever. So they had that type of relationship where she can go to him and talk to him whether she was feeling sad, even with, like, she loved music and poetry, and they were able to relate on that. So that was good.
I encouraged her to bring out that side of herself. Like, to this day, I still do. Because we're still in contact. But we'll get to that part later. So, like, I encouraged her to write down her feelings, write down her poetry. She wanted to rap. I said, do that too. Like, just, I pushed her. We both pushed her.
She did it.
And she did it. And then, we started having some behavioral issues with her. And then an issue we started to have was the other two girls saw that we were being attentive.
They felt like we was giving her too much attention,
right.
And they were getting jealous of how much attention we were giving her. But mind you, she was a new girl in the home, so we were trying to make her feel comfortable.
Right.
And it was not like we were neglecting
not at all
the other girls.
Not at all.
They was just jealous because we spoiled them in a way.
Right. They were very spoiled those first 2 months. Honestly, they were spoiled the whole time they were there. We didn't stop spoiling them. It was just we were more attentive towards her because she needed it.
Yeah, she was younger, and she had different other issues and situations that was going on that she was dealing with. And also, she had workers that came to the house every week to talk to her. So we had to be more attentive when it came to her. The other girls, they weren't in that same situation.
And then we started running into our first issue at this point is because this girl was in a program called My Pack for Mental Health. And I started to realize that these people were not helping her at all.
The workers kept switching, and she had to keep telling her story over and over and over to everyone else. And if these experiences are traumatizing to her, they're trauma, they take her back to a point that she did not want to think about in that moment. And for her to have to keep reliving these moments were a bit much to her, to where she didn't even want to talk to them. Like, she didn't even want to see them if we weren't in the room.
Right. We could see her face and her body language and everything just
Deflate,
every time
change.
that she was just going through this. And we asked her, how did it go this time? It went. It just happened. I'm sick of seeing, to the point where at one point she just didn't even want to see him at all.
Yeah. It was bad.
And then so we're running into our first walls, which is this issue with her, and also
her and the other girl that were in the room. They were in the room together. They was having friction. Right. They wasn't getting along to the point where they was about to fight.
Right, and we had to even go as far as to separate them for a couple of nights.
Yeah.
It was a petty fight that honestly shouldn't have happened, but they were kids, and honestly, one of them wanted the space more than the other, which they honestly had ample space.
Yeah.
They had their own bedrooms within the bedroom. It was just the two of them, like I said, and there's 2.5 bedroom space. They had a big space.
And they all had their own bathroom.
Right.
So it was just girls.
Right.
Just girls. That's all. Teenage girls.
And then so the other girl, we ran into the issue. Remember we told you her social worker told us that she can go places.
Yeah, her social worker told us that we didn't have to ask approval for her to go visit or go anywhere. Pretty much she can go wherever she wants, as long as we knew where she was and we knew she was safe. An incident happened where she wanted to go spend time with her biological family, and her cousin had asked her to babysit. Spoke to her cousin, had a good communication occurred with her cousin, and we talked about it and was like, okay, you can go. But before that incident occurred, the younger girl had accused the older girl, which was the second girl that was in, they shared the room, of stealing her money. So I confronted the second girl, which I probably could have did it a better way. But I confronted her and asked her, why did she take her money, even though she says she didn't. She was upset about that. So we still had an agreement of her going over her family house that weekend. So after that, she was a little hot, mad, or whatever. Got over it.
And we thought everything was fine.
She went to visit her family. She was there for 2 days. It was over a weekend. And I was taking the first girl, I was taking her to school one day, and I was about to pick her back up. And I got a call from the social worker, and she was like, do you know where Kayla is, which was the middle child, pretty much the second girl.
Right.
And I'm like,
I'm at work, so I'm not even knowing what's going on.
I'm like, yes. And she's like, oh, well, we heard that she was at her family house in such and such. I was like, yeah, she is. Like, I'm aware of this. Well, she's not supposed to be over there. You need to go pick her up. And I said, well, I didn't know she wasn't supposed to be over there. Like, I thought that she was no, it has to be approved by the wards of the court, blah, 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 blah. So I'm just like,
that's not what we were told.
Okay. So I went and picked her up. She came home, whatever. And I asked her, like, what happened. She said that one of her aunties had saw one of the workers that wasn't even her worker in passing. And we don't know how this came about, but they stated that we kicked her out.
We still don't know how that story...
So I'm like...
Literally, all of her stuff was still here.
What? They said that we kicked her out. Well, I don't want to accuse anyone, but someone stated that we kicked her out of the house, which is why she was staying at her cousin's house. But that was not the case.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
So they opened up a case on our home.
Investigating.
And they investigated, talked to our certain family members, our close friends, and all of these things. And they found out that is not what happened. We told them what happened with the social worker who had quit.
Right.
The second child, she didn't have a social worker, but
for about months, she didn't have a social worker.
No, I said she had that social worker for only a week before she quit, and we never saw her again after that.
That she had even quit though.
So it was a whole bunch of a mess, and it was like, oh well, social worker told you guys that was okay, and we were like, yeah, and well, she doesn't even work here anymore.
So since we couldn't
It's like,
prove that, we got what was called a cap placed on our house for about, what was it, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something like
a
that.
month. It was like a month.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So
It was very ridiculous. After the investigation, they found out that we were actually great people, and
right.
we had a lot of good recommendations and stuff like this. So they had to take it off. It was just, it should have never been in place, but because they were doing their jobs, quote unquote, they had to do it. But it should have never occurred.
It was upsetting, and then the fact that we heard something out of the mouth of a social worker, and then we weren't even informed that that social worker had quit, because according to that social worker, she was just going on a leave for a few months.
Yeah.
And then, so we had no idea that, we're thinking that you're supposed to be able to take the word of a social worker at face value.
But we couldn't. But again, we weren't as knowledgeable because we didn't have, first of all, we didn't have the book that was given to everyone else.
Right.
Second of all, a lot of stuff inside of the classes that we had, or the training classes, were not spoke about or dismissed.
Right.
So a lot of information we didn't know. So it was learning as you go. And then after all of that occurred, a few months later in June.
Yeah, in June you went to.
My grandmother passed away. So I had to go to California, which involved leaving him here with 3 teenage girls. Which I felt like he was up for it. I felt like he can handle it. We talked about it. We talked to the girls. It was an emergency situation for me and my parents and my mom's side of the family. So I was like, okay, you can handle it.
And
I left that day. They dropped me off, and things occurred.
Yeah, I'll start telling the story from here. So I had 2 of the girls with me. The first 2, they came with me to drop her off at the airport. And the third one stayed back because we just had our dogs. They were puppies at the point, and she wanted to stay with them.
It was also storming that day.
Yeah, and she didn't want to be out in the rain or whatever. So I was like, I understand.
This is the youngest, the 15-year-old.
Right. So we figured, we told all the girls, this is your house too.
Right.
And you should feel comfortable here. So, just chill out. I'll be back when, mind you, Memphis is about 2 hours away from us. So I had to get her to the airport. And
you also had to stop at Costco's that day.
Yeah. So I was gone from the house probably for about a good 6 hours or so. So I get back that night. The kids' curfew at this time was 10. Was it 10 or 11?
It was 11.
Yeah.
10 or 11, one of them.
Yeah, so when we get back, they all decided they wanted to go walk to the store. And so, that's fine.
The store is like literally less than 5 minutes away from our house.
Yeah, so we let this is not nothing new that they haven't done before. This is everyday occurrence. You walk to the fine, yeah, go ahead. So they go to the store, and I'm putting the stuff away. I'm a little overwhelmed though by everything that's going on. This is a lot of stuff, and then the youngest girl comes back and she's just distraught. And then they start telling me a story about that a boy that had walked them home from the store. He went up the street from our house and got shot.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, oh my God, that's terrible. Is he okay? And I just asked her, is he okay? Just be there for his family or whatever. I'm just, encouraging her. I'm thinking everything is gonna be okay because I'm like, I'm glad you guys are not hurt, but I'm like, I want to hold them closer to me at that point. So I'm like, if these kind of things are going on, then I don't need you guys going out.
Right.
So, this is, especially being from California, where if somebody gets shot in California, it's not going to just be an isolated incident because somebody else is going to come back,
retaliation.
Yeah, back and forth. But it's not like that out here. There's isolated incidents out here. So, but I didn't know that. So I'm, being overprotective. And I didn't realize, but at this point, the youngest girl had started contacting the boy's family.
And it wasn't necessarily a positive contact.
No, it wasn't positive contact. She was having what was the paranoia at this point. And because of the shooting, and I think that was traumatizing to her, and it must have triggered something inside of her. But she thought that the boy's family was after her, and it did not help that this boy's mother was making threats to her via social media.
Right.
Mind you, a grown woman.
Going back and forth. So they called me while I'm in California. He tells me what happened. But the incident that occurred was the reason her and the mother got into it is because she made a post on Facebook that she shouldn't have made.
And it wasn't necessarily... It was in poor taste because it just happened. It was basically saying I didn't have anything to do with that.
Keep y'all names out my mouth, but she cursed in the post and all that. So the mama was like, well, keep my son's name out your mouth. And she started going into it with the mom. And I told her, like, take the post down because it has nothing to do with you. You're making yourself look guilty even if you have nothing to do with it by even making the post. So take the post down off of Facebook. She didn't take it down as soon as I said, but she ended up taking it down. But by that, it had already spiraled out of control. She was scared. She was paranoid. She thought that they were going to come shoot up our house, pretty much.
Right. And I did everything I could at that point to be like, look, they're not gonna do anything to you. Look, if that boy's mom talks to you again, give her my number and say tell her she can talk to me. If she has any issues with you, she can talk to me. And so that the night rolls around, and I think I was off that day. And I literally went in the room. I thought everything was fine. You know, things had calmed down a little bit. And then I looked at the cameras. We have cameras all around the house. You know, we have kids, so we are watchful of all these cameras. And I look at the camera, and I see the youngest girl standing outside with the backpack. And my mind immediately... I'm half naked in my room putting my clothes away. And I put on whatever I had and ran out the door with my house shoes on. And I'm like, what are you doing? I calmly ask her, I'm like, baby girl, come back in the house. And she says, no, Mr. Mosley, they're going to come get me. And I was like, baby, they're not going to come get you. Just come back in the house. No, Mr. Mosley. And then she started walking away. And so I had my house shoes on. So I ran back in the house, put my shoes on. By the time I made it outside, I got in the car because I was like, I can't, especially me as a man, I'm very cautious of how I approach issues with these girls. So if there's anything that needs to be done, especially when it comes to discipline that's possibly could involve me having to touch them or anything like that, I don't do it because... I don't want to be the person that hurts these girls or can be seen as possibly hurting these girls or anything like that. So I'm like, if I can't physically stop her from leaving, I can watch where she's going. So I hop in the car, and then I see the brake lights of the car turn another street, and by the time I got around there, I couldn't see them anymore.
So pretty much she left. He called me, told me what happened. We're blowing up her phone, worried about her. We called her relatives in the area, seeing if they had heard anything. Nothing. So we're both worried, and we're in two different states.
Panicking.
How many days went? So I spoke to her sister, her older sister,
who lives about 20 minutes away.
And she was like, "Oh, maybe she's at so and so place." So she went looking around, and she ended up finding her at a hotel with two older boys. The social workers ended up getting her and taking her to a facility. They didn't let her speak to her. They didn't let us have no type of communication with her. So we didn't know what her mind state was. We didn't know what was going on with her.
We actually told her social worker that she can come back.
Yeah, we did tell her social worker that she can come back if she wanted to. And she was like, oh, well, they're not going to let her do that because she left your home and blah, 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 blah.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because, like, look, we understand kids do things. Like, she was upset. Let her come back here. You know, we can work it out as a family because she was part of our family.
Yeah, so, she was our girl, our baby girl.
And so I'm having to deal with this. And mind you, I'm trying to keep my head on straight because my wife is trying to deal with the loss of her grandmother and be there to console
my mother, right. My family, It was a lot going on in the month of June of last year.
And so on top of all that, the second child we got, Kayla got approved to stay with her family.
Yeah, so she ended up going back with her family, which means we only had one child
Like literally
in the
2 days after that. So we went from having 3 kids in the house to just me and the first girl.
Yeah.
And it was just like a quick turnaround. I had to adjust, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. Even though we were still in contact when Kayla came back, like it was a heartbreaking thing. Like I did not want her to leave.
Yeah.
And her
and I didn't even get to see her leave. Like I wasn't even in the state, so, but I did get to speak to her.
So
but.
her and I probably had the longest embrace. We probably sat there and hugged for 5 minutes. Just, I'm gonna miss you, baby. Even though like her and she had her times where she was acting like a child, basically.
Yeah.
But
spoiled.
Right. I love her, so I'm like, oh my goodness, this is something big. She's leaving our house. So
yeah.
But the oldest girl, by this time she's 17. They're both 17, and it's just her and I for a month.
A long month, and she called me every day. Every day. I'm like, you don't even talk to me like this when I'm at home. She called me every day, like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you miss me. She's like, when you coming home? She missed me.
And I was going to work a lot, so by the time I got home from work, 12 or 1 in the morning, she was asleep, or, we couldn't spend that much time together. So my days off, we did. Her and I had some bonding moments. We cooked some food together, and we hung out. But the feel in the house was just different because it was just her
quiet.
Yeah.
It was quiet. Aww.
And so when she got back towards the
July.
middle of July.
No, it wasn't the middle of July. I got back after the 4th. I got back on the 5th or the 6th.
It was the 7th. It was the 7th because
I had changed my flight because we took the girls, Maya and Malia.
Yeah, our nieces came back, and so it was just like, okay, well now we got kids here.
2 more girls back. They were younger, but it was our nieces.
Yeah.
At the time they were 10 and 11.
Right.
And they got to bond with Jada. We missed them. So it was like the house was back alive again, but we were still worried about the youngest that left because we still hadn't had any contact with her.
At all. And every time we reached out, we would try to, tell her she can call us. Oh, and they said, well, we can't give her your number.
Yeah.
Well, why not?
And she had a phone that we had got her, but yeah, it was bad.
So this is all going on. So we have our nieces here. And I'm like really happy how they bonded so fast. Immediately, our nieces
with our oldest Jada,
calling her their cousin, and by this time we were actually in what was it called? The process of adoption. It was.
We were going through the process of adoption, like the paperwork stage, and making sure this was really what she wanted and what we wanted. Right. She had to do the stage where she had to get a physical. Right. We had to get questioned about stuff again. We had to fill out a lot of paperwork. Mm-hmm. So many signatures. Talk to a lawyer.
It was like this thick of stuff we had to sign.
Yeah, it was a lot. But we were ready.
But I would do it all over again.
Yeah, we were ready.
I would do it all over
That's
again.
our baby.
So our nieces stayed with us for a little over a month.
Yeah. And
then August came and went.
Well, their parents came and picked them up in August.
And I got sick. And so we still had our oldest girl, and we knew we were going to go through the process. And honestly, she was the biggest help during this time.
Yeah.
By this time, she had got her license and had graduated.
She got her license and she graduated. She got her GED. She graduated earlier than what she was supposed to as a regular high schooler. She wasn't
supposed to be graduating until this June.
June of 2022, but she graduated 2021 in the August?
Yeah, August or July.
No, it wasn't July.
It was before our birthday. I know that.
Yeah, it was August, the end of August.
And I'm gonna say this much: the workers doubted her.
Yeah, they did.
And
They
they
said that
questioned
they
her.
didn't think that she would be able to do it. They felt like it would be too hard for her because it was at a college.
Right.
And she surpassed them.
Very fast.
She surpassed them. They thought she was going to change her mind about wanting to be adopted. Like, it was, oh, Jesus.
It's like, even her worker even commented that, oh, since you came here, you changed.
They changed. They thought that it was a bad change, but it was actually a change for the better, because she was able to accomplish a lot of things that she wanted.
Right, and we were there to encourage her through it. So during this time, we didn't even get a call for another foster child for a while.
Yeah.
And then we finally got the call for a foster child, and
A week, 2 weeks before Christmas.
No. We got a call for a child before the adoption in October.
Oh yeah.
And we had said yes, but they said they didn't want us to.
They said they didn't want us to have any kids at the moment due to the incident of the youngest girl that we had.
Oh yeah, we didn't even mention that they put us under investigation
again because she ran away from our home, and they assumed that we had something to do with the reason for her running away, which we did not.
Right, and then it was all kind of stuff. I had to get drug tested.
All kind of allegations against us. Again, we both had to get drug tested.
Apparently, we don't watch the kids, and I'm just like, we had to really walk them around this house and look,
show them the cameras,
this house is
and the
covered
inside
with cameras.
and the outside of the house. Because we had some crazy allegations towards us, but it's like, what?
How did this even come to be? And so,
mind you, we don't even know anybody in our neighborhood.
We don't know nobody here at all.
So
apparently somebody is watching us and just doesn't like what we're doing.
Yeah.
So before the adoption happened in November, we finally got a call in October from the youngest girl.
Oh yeah, she was able to call us and let us know she was okay.
All right, and she actually called when we were watching something, and she was asleep on the couch, and she had called me on the phone, and her and I just talked for about 30, 45 minutes, and it was just like
she missed us.
Right.
It was great.
We had a conversation, and we just told her that I told her that I hope she's learned a lesson. I told her it's about your decisions, and then she told us that they did not give her the option to even have our number.
Right. They didn't allow her to call us. So
they were telling us two different things, because she said that she was allowed to have phone calls there from people, but they trying to keep us apart.
For what reason, we did not know. Fast forward a little bit, and what was that? Was it December?
November we adopted.
November we adopted Jada.
Who was our daughter?
She was ours, but she was ours before adoption. Right. But
there was no doubt about that.
We adopted her, which was a great, great moment. I went to court. It was great. It was beautiful.
It was a very happy day. Even though I was not 100%, I'm still going through what I was going through. I was just ecstatic, and I gave her the biggest hug. We embarrassed her in the elevator. Just loving on her and hugging on her.
Yeah, we did.
And so the next month in December, we got a call for 2 foster children within a span of 2 days.
No, before that, we got a call for... It was 2. You're right. You're right.
So we got a call for 2, a boy and a girl.
We were happy we were getting a boy, because up until that point we had all girls.
Yeah. And so we had changed up, which was our office upstairs, and made it into a bedroom. Which is what it was meant to be in the first place.
For the boy, so he can have his own space away from the girls.
And we had put a lot of thought into this because, he's a 14-year-old boy, and then there's supposed to be another girl coming who was
13.
14.
14?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was 14, he was 13, so I'm like, okay, we're not even going to risk anything like that. So you're going to be upstairs by our bedroom, the boy, and the girl's going to be on the other side with our daughter. And so we put a lot of thought into this.
So they both got them.
And they're supposed to come in a couple of days of each other, actually.
But they came on the same day.
Same day.
It was a Monday. I remember I was working.
And I was the girl came first, and when she came in, I had broke down the rules to her, and we were a little bit more structured at this time because we learned our lesson about some of the rules, So we had a little bit stricter rules, especially because these kids were younger. So
so we changed up our rules a bit.
Yeah. we're not strict parents at all, but they were a little bit stricter.
As far as curfew, we changed up our curfew rule because from them being younger, 11 o'clock curfew was a little too late.
Right.
For them to be coming out of the house, so we changed that.
And we kind of gave them the opportunity to earn different privileges. You know, if they wanted to go out, you know, we wanted to, you know, have an incentive for them to do different things. And so they both came. The boy came. The girl came first. Put her in this room where we're in now. And then the boy came and put him upstairs. And he found out he liked music.
Yeah, he really liked it. He really liked his room.
Right. He was shocked when he went up his room. He was just like, "This is my room." Wait, just me?
He was a cool kid. Cool kid.
Really? I was just like, yeah. And so that night, I actually took him with me to go to the store. We went out to the store together. We hung out, and then the next day, they call me. The boy's social worker calls me and says, "Have they called you and told you?" I said, "Called and told me what?" "Oh, we're coming to pick him up." Mind you, I had just told this boy that this is your room. Get comfortable. You can decorate it how you want to, however you feel. You know, you can set up your microphone over there. You can make music. Everything. I'm like
excited.
I'm excited. You know, I got somebody here to do music with me, and finally there's a boy. You know, so
right.
And they call me. I'll come and pick up the boy. Something with your social workers.
According to them, our home was only approved for girls, which was a lie. There was an incident that occurred with our oldest that no one had told us about.
I can get her on so she can tell her side of the story. But we're not going to
disclose it, but there was an incident that happened that just was like, what? That no one knew about.
Misunderstanding that was not true.
It was horrible. So they ended up coming to take the boy, which only left us with a girl. But then they called us for another girl to come to our home.
A couple days later, and it was an emergency.
No.
Oh, you're right.
No, they called us for another girl to come to our home. She was a teenager. She was 18 years old. She didn't have nowhere to go, and we agreed to have her. But then another social worker called us
the same day
because there was an emergency move for a girl that was being trafficked. So
right.
They said
that she was in danger of being trafficked and that she would need to be watched. It was an emergency, and they needed us for a couple of days.
So we agreed. We was like, okay. But when we made this agreement, we were still looking to get the girl before her that we had got called back, the 18-year-old. We were looking to get her.
And we had already said yes. They said yes to her. They had communicated to her that she was going to be coming to a home.
Yes. So the girl that needed a place emergency, she came that night.
Like it was quick.
They called us emergency. We agreed. She came that night. She was only supposed to be here for a few days. Come to find out, they changed it. Like, no, this is where she's going to be placed.
The next day they asked us, well, it seems like she's doing fine. Oh, mind you, they told us that she was supposed to be monitored. It was some kind of a babysitter. That's what they called it.
Yeah, they were supposed to have some. No, it was a watcher.
Yeah,
she's supposed to have a watcher, which is someone that literally sleeps in her bedroom with her and watches her 24/7 because she was at high risk of running away.
Right.
But they called us and was like, "Oh, she's doing well, so I think we're gonna leave her there." Blah blah blah. And we was like, "Well, what happens to the other girl placement? Can she still come?" And I was like, "No, we're moving her to a shelter."
Right.
Right
before Christmas.
What?
So that means that this girl would had to spend Christmas
in a shelter.
We were livid.
We was upset about that because in the situation of getting the other girl, mind you, we didn't have a problem with getting the other girl. That was not the issue.
At all.
The issue was we were lied to. And it made us feel bad because this other girl was lied to too. She thought that she was going to have a family. But it didn't go like that.
And so the girl that was the emergency placement, they told us to, see if she wants to stay with us. And so we'd love to have her.
She didn't want to stay.
She didn't want to stay with us. So she was here for about, 3 weeks?
3 weeks. And right before Christmas.
Things started going downhill with her. And it was because The system was doing her wrong. Honestly, I feel like they would have stayed. She would have stayed if they didn't treat her like crap. If she was a so-called victim, they were treating her like she did something wrong.
They were treating her really bad. They came and took her phone. I snatched it out of her hand.
They came and snatched it out of her hand.
Accused her of lying about certain things. You know, it was bad, and she ran away. She told us that she was leaving. But the day before she left, she said, if they don't do this, I'm going to leave. But we didn't believe that she was actually going to leave. But the next morning, I went into her room and she was gone. She wrote us a long note as to why she left, which we understand, like why she felt like it was the right thing to do. And we were worried about her. We put out a missing person report, and she contacted us soon after, told us she was okay. And then soon after that, she was found by the authorities. Yeah. But her situation was horrible.
And we still don't know the extent of what happened for sure. But the fact that there was even accusations of sex trafficking, which means that she was a victim. You need to treat a victim.
She was not treated like a victim. She was treated like the person that was doing the sex trafficking.
And then when they got her here, they didn't even have her information right. They had her birthday wrong. They had her birth year wrong. They didn't even know her full name.
We didn't have any information about this girl, like, until a few days before she left, before she decided to run away.
Right.
So it was a mess. I feel like the system really failed her.
Very much so.
In a way.
And so, but she still was in communication with me for a while. I haven't had any communication with her for a few months now, but I assume that's because they caught her and probably put her in a facility.
Yeah.
But I still have contact with the boy. So let's fast forward until after Christmas, and New Year's comes. New Year's Eve comes, and we get a call from our daughter, the oldest, saying that she got a call from Kayla who wants her to come pick her up. and then mind you that we got a call the day before
from the youngest
saying that she wants to come over too.
The one that ran away in the beginning and was picked up at the hotel and all that. So it was like a little family reunion.
Right? We had all of our girls back.
We had all the original girls back, plus the new girl, the younger one that we had. So it was like a family reunion that year. So we brought in the New Year's together. We had so much fun. We played music. We went live on Facebook. We danced. We ate. I cooked. It was a blast. It was like they never left.
Right.
We laughed. We played games. It was a lot of fun.
It was very, very fun.
We brought in 2022 right.
Right. It felt like, it really did feel like a reunion vibe. Like, yes, they're back. Like,
yeah, our babies. And we have a great relationship with all three of them still till today.
Yes. They're our daughters.
They call us right now. We will come running. You do something to them, you best to be prepared for us. Right. That's all I'm going to say.
So when the other girl, we'll just tell a little bit about this story. She was going through the same problem that the first one went through with the mental health system out here, which
with the MyPac
failing her completely. Her record changed 3 times within a week.
Yeah. And
on top of that, we didn't realize that she had manipulation issues.
Yeah, very manipulative. It was just bad, where she was telling her social worker a certain thing and then telling us another thing. Like, she would come and tell us she loved us every day. Mind you, she hadn't been in our house that long. But she would tell us she loved us. She would call him dad, call me mom. And then she would be telling the social worker, oh, they don't feed me. They don't watch me. They don't pay attention to me.
Mind you, that is one of the most offensive things to us, because our house we had an open kitchen. Go in there and cook anytime if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you hungry, go make us some meat.
Most of the food that we had at this time in our refrigerator, our pantries, and our deep freezer, and in our regular refrigerator were because of her. We went shopping so many times telling her, what do you want? Get whatever you want. Like, And our other daughter, Jada, the oldest, who we had adopted at this time, she was like, "Why are you getting all this stuff? I don't even eat this." But it was like, well, she does. So we got so much stuff for her.
We catered to her.
The thing is, she wanted someone to wait on her hand and foot. She didn't want to learn how to cook. We taught her how to cook certain things. Right. She didn't want to learn how to cook. She didn't want to know how to do anything for herself. I feel like she
was institutionalized because she had spent so much time in facilities. And so when she got here, look, my goal is, and my mom taught me this as well, when you leave this house, I want you to be able to be independent. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think she liked the fact that I was hard on her because she said I can't do it. Well, I said, you don't know what you can do until you try.
Yeah, she didn't like trying certain things. But when she did do something, she would be happy, like, oh, I did it, and we'll be happy for her. Or so we thought.
Until everything hit the fan in the same day.
And so we thought she was good. We thought we were cool. But an incident happened where our social worker came because they were like, oh, we need to have a meeting. And we're like, well.
No, it was actually, she just came for a normal visit. It was because they're supposed to come every 3 months.
So yeah.
And then she told me about
that. But I was supposed to have a meeting with her social worker, with the child's social worker the next day. And she was like, well, do you know what the meeting is about? I'm at work and he's talking to her and he was like, well, no. And then what did she tell you the meeting was supposed to be about?
Well, that's when she brought up the issue about the food.
She said that, no, first thing, let me back up. First thing happened when she walked in our house. She was like, oh, y'all have lights? Like, she flipped our light switch, like, oh, y'all have lights in the house? And he's like, yeah.
Then she would turn on our water. Oh, the water's on?
The water's on? Wow. And then she opened up the pantry. Then the refrigerator was like, and y'all have food? Oh, wow. And she's like writing in a notepad. Like, so they go sit down. And she was like, well, do you know what the meeting is supposed to be about? And he was like, no. And she's like, well, there's been accusations that y'all don't have food. Y'all don't have lights. Y'all don't have, all these things. And we're like, y'all don't have running water. And we're like, what? What?
I'm offended at this. Like, I am.
So our social worker, wanted to talk to the child. And as soon as she wanted to talk to the child and found out that we told her the information, the child, her MyPack worker was here to talk to her.
It came at the same time because she talked to her, and then her MyPack worker came up our walkway.
And she stormed out the door. Was leaving. The child stormed out the door, start walking up the street, went to the park. I'm at work while all of this is occurring, and he's trying to deal with all of this with these two different workers, our worker and her MyPack worker.
Our worker literally got in her car
and left.
Like, and said, well, I don't know what you about to do.
And she left him. Okay.
And then, mind you, this worker that comes is a licensed therapist.
She didn't know what to do either.
She followed me. She was just like, oh, she went up the street. I'm like, follow her? Because our car wasn't here. Our other daughter, our oldest, was at work and had the car. So I'm like, follow her. So she went. She's at the park and she said she won't talk to me.
So he went to the park.
And she stayed there with me for like 10 minutes. And was just
left.
And left me there. I'm like, you're a therapist. This is what you're supposed to do.
And she called her supervisor. And her supervisor told her to leave. So she left. And he was left alone with this child who is hysterical. Who ended
found
up
a piece of glass on the ground.
Picking up a piece of glass. Started running around the benches. Mind you, she's a little healthy.
Right.
Running around benches, telling him to get away from her. So he called the police because he didn't know what to do.
Mind you, I called the worker. I called my worker. I called her worker again. I said she had a piece of glass in her hand. Can I take it from her?
They said no.
I don't know what if you do.
They didn't know what to do. I don't know. I'll call you back. Call the police. Called the police. Police came. What happened when the police got there?
The police got there. I had to literally yell at him to get out the car because at this time she had cut herself. Well, there were superficial scratches. It was like very small things. Like it was obvious to me that she wasn't trying to really hurt herself, but she was trying to make a scene. Mm-hmm. But it's serious enough that she had a piece of glass in her hand and she's bleeding. And I had to tell the cop. She was just like, "Oh, somebody called for a 14-year-old girl." Literally, the park. There's nobody else there but me and the girl. I'm the one that called the police. So, where's the 14-year-old girl? Oh, it's got to be her right there. I had to yell at him, Out the car now.
To go get her. And she was just distraught. So I end up getting off work in an emergency, telling my boss, it's like, hey, I got to go. This is the incident that's occurring. So I walk down the street to the park and I'm talking to her and she's like, oh, I just don't want to be with you guys anymore. And I'm like, why? What happened? Like, why did you tell these lies? Oh, I told my social worker not to tell y'all that I said those things. And I'm like, but why would you even say these things when they are not true? I told her not to tell y'all. I just don't want to be with y'all anymore. And I'm just like, well, now you lost that chance.
Right.
I mean,
You
took it out of our hands.
We think now it was the fact that her old foster home that she had left had an issue because the parents were splitting up.
And she thought we were going to split up or something was going to occur with us. But I still don't feel like that was an excuse for her to act the way that she acted.
It was no excuse for her to act that way.
And then the ambulance ended up coming and he ended up riding with her to the hospital. And my other daughter, she came home from work and picked me up and we ended up going to the hospital. And then after that, she was taken to a facility after they bandaged her up and fixed her up. But the FEL came in with her social workers. Nobody knew what to do in this situation. Nobody knew how to help her. Nobody knew how to calm her down. And the messed up part is they knew that she was accusing us of all of these things. Like, her social worker would talk to us very disrespectfully, like yell at us through text message. And we're like, why is she talking to us this way? Like, why is she acting like this towards us? We didn't know why. And I would have to tell her, like, you don't got to talk to us like this. Like, you don't have to yell at us. But whole time she thought that we were being mean or bad to this girl when we were not at all.
And I feel like a social worker should be able to see through a child's manipulation. And I understand you have to investigate things, but her worker didn't take the opportunity to come out
and talk to us
and see us once. So
these
are just phone conversations that are happening and no proof of anything. So,
and then once all this stuff occurred and she finally got to talk to us, she acted like she was the nicest person ever. We had to call our supervisor and her supervisor on her twice. That's how bad it was with her. But after all this, she just acted like, oh, she was so apologetic and like, oh, I'm sorry all of this happened. And it's like, but you knew what was occurring and you said nothing. It was bad.
So that is the last foster child that we've had. And at this point right now,
we've chosen to put a pause on it because it's a bit much. We feel like the system is, how could I say it? I don't necessarily want to say it's broken, but in a way it is broken. We don't want to not help the kids per se, but for us to be able to help them, they have to have proper social workers, proper resources, stuff like that. Because if they're coming into our home without the proper resources, then the social workers are saying all these things and not communicating with us, how are we supposed to be of help?
We can't be the only ones advocating for these kids.
Right.
And it's supposed to be a team effort with this. And if you're not communicating with us, you have rude social workers, which we've had, people who are miscommunications, lies.
It's a lot of unnecessary stress at the moment. And the thing is, we weren't dealing with babies. Like, we're the home that takes the teenagers.
Which they say people don't want.
And it was like, for you to want a home to stay open, running, and take teenagers, then you should be able to help us, be able to communicate with us properly. There was so miscommunication amongst multiple social workers where they themselves were not communicating with each other.
Right.
So it's like, how are we supposed to be relaying these messages to everyone when y'all not even relaying the messages to each other? So it was just a lot of mess. And he was like, are you sure you don't want to do it right now? I'm like, it's too much stress. Like, with you being sick and with me, like, having to be focusing on work, it's too much right now. We need to put a pause on this. So we haven't had another child in how many months?
About 3 months now.
About 3 months now. But we're still very active in the first 3 lives that we got. We're still very active. They still consider us our parents. They've both been over
even the
multiple
boy,
times.
I still talk to the boy to this day. So.
Yeah, he still talks to the boy. I still talk to him from time to time. So we're still active in the children's lives that we had, except for the last one. But that was more so on her terms.
She chose,
not ours. If the door opens up again and we feel more comfortable and stable to allow for this to happen, yes, of course, we're still considered a open home right now for foster children. We're still licensed foster parents and all of that.
Next year, actually.
So depending on how we feel and how things work out, we may get more kids, we may not, or we may do a different resources or outsource program and build something else to help these kids.
Because overall, I have to say that the kids are not the issue, because I love every single child.
Yeah, they're not bad kids. It's just they're in really messed up situations. And they had a bad deck of cards dealt. And you have to be able to love them through everything that they've gone through. And a lot of people can't deal with that. And they've been pushed away and rejected so much that that's all they know, which is horrible.
I do want to encourage anybody that wants to get into this line of work as a social worker to do your due diligence. Anyone that wants to come into this and be a foster parent, do your due diligence.
Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Make sure you're doing it for the kids, not for a paycheck. Because mind you, the paycheck is not enough to cover any expenses or anything that pertains to the child as far as well-being and taking care of the child. So make sure you're coming into this for the right reasons. Exactly. And make sure it's out of love. And also be humble, be open with these kids, because they already understand that rejection is real.
And don't be afraid to share your story with them too. Like, remember, you were a teenager at one time as well. You went through these things too. Like, you may not have went through everything they went through, but on some level, you can relate to them.
Right. But that is our experience thus far. Currently, we only have our one child in the home, which is our oldest, who is 18 and thriving.
Right. She actually left us for
she moved to Memphis with her sister for a month and came back. She couldn't take it.
She said she wanted to move out, and we didn't want her to leave, but we let her go.
We let her swirl. She came back within a month. But if the situation was better on the other side, then I believe she would have stayed. But things work out in different ways. We're happy to have her back. She is like the joy of our house. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, that is our story of our journey and the ups and downs of being foster parents. Something that we never thought would probably happen as quickly as it did.
But it happened.
It has been a roller coaster ride. The highs have been amazing. Highs, but the lows have been
low. Yeah. And it's a lot of stuff we aren't able to say because they are in the system, and it's not, again, our story to tell. So probably on other segments or split off segments from this, they will be able to tell their story.
I would love to have them on. I'm going to talk to them. One of them has said that she wants to be on here. And supposedly she's supposed to be moving back with us this September.
Yeah. So. And she has something baking in the oven. So we will be grandparents.
But I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of RoyalT Rules Real Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this out. Whatever you listen to this on or watching this on. If you're watching it on YouTube, drop a like. I said subscribe.
Comment.
If you're watching this listen to this on Apple Music or Spotify, then
thumbs up, follow,
share. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Peace. Yes, I think of you. Yes, I think of you.